Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I have another Gen 8 competitive discussion video, this time on a very controversial topic, but I had to make the video, man, because I'm too brave. It had to be said. Who was gonna make the video? It had to be me. So this is basically my opinions on Dynamax and why I believe that it is broken in the metagame. If not broken, then definitely unhealthy. After playing Sword and Shield for the last week, Gen 8 OU, I've probably played like 200, 300 games by now. I now totally think that it's a little too broken, Dynamax that is, and after playing all these games, I want to give my point of view and stuff like that. So I have my team builder, because these are just like, I guess like 15 of the teams I've been using so far, different Pokemon. And then I also have this thread on Snowball called Dynamax Discussion, because I saw a lot of good points in this. So I guess let's talk about Dynamax straight off the bat. So what it does, as you guys all know, is that it doubles the HP of the Pokemon and gives them access to max moves. So max moves obviously have different characteristics, like max Airstream turns flying type moves, lets you get a +1 speed boost. Max poison moves let you get +1 special attack. Max fighting moves turn into max knuckle, let you get +1 attack. Water moves, you know, they start the rain. Fire moves bring the sun. Rock moves bring the sand, all that stuff. It's crazy, right? Max moves are able to completely switch the game up, even though it's only 3 turns that Pokemon are affected by it. And at first I was like, yo, this is so much fun. Dynamaxing is awesome. And I did not think it was broken. Even right now, I'm not sure if I completely think Dynamaxing is broken, but I do think it's unhealthy and it's not the best for a truly competitive meta. It's definitely fun, but I do think it's a little too powerful. So I guess some of the first things we can go over, the best Dynamax users to me, because I feel like that's like the easiest way to like break down why some of these are too powerful. Now, one of the arguments I saw for Dynamax, I'll look at this post. This one right here is pretty nice because it just shows the Pokemon. I don't really need to read his as much, but I can just explain it from what I know. So here are just some he have: Ditto, Hawlucha, Gyarados, Excadrill. These are definitely 4 very viable Dynamaxers. Ditto, one of the most offensive ones for sure. The problem being is that if your opponent ever Dynamaxes, they can go on their little sweep, you know, they have 3 turns. Maybe your opponent has a Gyarados, for example. Let me just find my Gyara team. And their Gyara Dynamaxes and it goes on a sweep, right? And it kills like 3 Pokemon. And say they go for max Airstream a couple times, they got some Moxie boost, you're looking at like a +3 Gyarados, you got no chance. Then you can send out your Ditto, you can Dynamax in return and just reverse sweep them, because now you're like a +3 transformed Gyara, and you're able to Dynamax now, so you can get the 1-up. So Ditto is basically like the anti-Dynamax Pokemon. It's able to reverse sweep almost every single Dynamaxer. And then Dynamax also makes it so your Choice Scarf does not keep you locked in, which is ridiculous, but I'll talk about that more in depth. And these are just a couple of sweepers, I guess, that people have been using a lot. Gyarados is the most offensive one after Ditto, I'd say. This one is really annoying to deal with. The max Airstream speed boosts coupled with Moxie. Waterfall and Bounce are 2 really good double stab options. Power Whip, which is just a hilarious move that lets you get rid of Rotom Wash, which used to be this thing's like biggest counter, and just, you know, water types in general, even lets you hit opposing Gyara pretty hard after your Z move is done. After your Dynamax is done. Dude, I can't even remember. It's crazy because people thought Z moves were broken. I remember people wanted to ban Z moves, and even then I defended Z moves. And the reason I defended Z moves is, even though I thought maybe they were too powerful, I really liked the fact that Z moves let a lot of like average Pokemon become really good. Like, look at a Pokemon like Komodo. That thing was in UU forever, and then thanks to its Z move, it was able to become a really great threat in OU. And I mean, I even used it in tournaments, stuff like that. Z moves in general let up a lot of mediocre Pokemon shine. And if you think about it, Dynamax is the same thing, right? You can get a lot of mediocre Pokemon, they can shine. But the problem with that is, yeah, you can say like, oh, it lets all these bad Pokemon flourish or whatever, but it lets the good Pokemon get so powerful. Like, you could put a Z move on Gyarados back in, like, let me think of a good Pokemon in Gen 7, for example. Let's see. Who's a good Pokemon, for example, that use Z move? Let's say Tornadus with the Z Flying. I don't know if this is probably Rocky Helmet, but yeah, say Z Flying or like Z Dragon Garchomp. Those are still good Pokemon, and even without the Z move, they're still pretty powerful. So it's not a big deal. Gyarados, when you give it a Dynamax, it's so much better than giving a regular, like, average Pokemon a Dynamax. Like, they're not the same. You cannot compare them. Meanwhile, if you give Garchomp a Z move Garchomp versus a regular Garchomp in Sun Moon, it's not the biggest difference. Like, they're still both threats, but it's not that big of a difference, just a one-time thing. Dynamax can really push a lot of these offensive mons over the edge thanks to the added effects of their moves, like max Airstream, max Geyser, stuff like that, and the fact that it can just give them too many stab boosts or just change the field conditions. It can just be too much at times, and I think that's a really big deal. So Gyarados is probably the one that I consider the best. Excadrill is very cool too, because this thing, you know, it can go through the sand, and it can set that up with max Rockfall and stuff like that. Max Quake, just very strong. Hawlucha is being referenced here because Hawlucha is actually able to defeat Ditto 1v1 thanks to Unburden. Ditto doesn't copy Unburden speed boost, so Hawlucha's still faster. And then there are a bunch of ones this guy considers. Barraskewda, for example, I used that one. Barraskewda, you know, that thing's defenses are really bad, but thanks to Dynamax, it's able to get a lot more HP, and its moves all take really good advantage. Max Knuckle gives you +1, Bounce turns into Max Airstream, gives you +1 speed, you can get +1 attack, Liquidation sets up the rain, so Swift Swim comes back afterwards, and you can make use of your Choice Band again, and then say you have +1 attack, +1 speed, and then you Max Geyser on your final turn to bring the rain back up. You're looking at just an insane threat, and it's like, how do you even deal with this after that? Like, you can't go into your Ferrothorn or Toxapex, those are just going to die at that point. So I feel like Dynamax can get just like it's like a snowball, and it can really just go too far. Like, remember when I was sweeping kids with Mantine? I was getting speed boost from the Hurricane, Gunk Shot special attack boost, set the rain back up with the final turn of Geyser, and then I just swept. Like, it was too easy. And I feel like, yeah, it just snowballs out of control way too quickly, way too fast. Now, looking at it, I was like, you know, Dynamax is really fun, and, you know, there is a lot you can get out of a lot of these Pokemon. Like, some of these Pokemon, they just transform into completely new Pokemon, thanks to Dynamax. But overall, I feel like the argument that I've seen a lot is, if a Pokemon Dynamaxes, the only way you can beat it is by Dynamaxing your own Pokemon. And then they're like, oh, well, it's a strategy, because it's like, oh, when's the right time to Dynamax? But if the only way you can defeat a Dynamax Gyarados is to Dynamax your own Mon, I don't think that's very competitive. Or if your only way to beat like a Dynamax threat is to sack 4 of your Pokemon and then send out your Ditto and then reverse sweep them and then they can't do anything, like, I think that's just not healthy. That's not truly like competitive. Sure, it's definitely a strategy, but I don't think that's the most competitive way we can, you know, play the game. And I think it takes away a lot of skill and that type of thing. But let's see what other arguments they have. When I go by the definition of broken, broken means like nothing can defeat it. That's not true. It's not like Dynamax is just completely undefeatable. Like, every Dynamax Pokemon has a check for the most part. But I do think it's unhealthy in the sense that it makes all these mind games, and also just not even mind games, it just makes a lot of like waiting. I feel like, oh, he Dynamaxed, okay, let me throw out the next 3-4 turns hoping I don't get swept. Oh, now let me send out my own in Dynamax. And people talk about defensive Dynamax utility, the fact that you get max HP, but very rarely do I see people Dynamaxing their Ferrothorns and stuff like that. You can, but you're obviously getting more, what's it called? You're obviously getting more value out of Dynamaxing an offensive Pokemon like Gyarados or something like that. And the fact that you can switch moves with choice is probably the biggest problem for me. Easily the biggest problem for me. Choice Pokemon are really good, right? I mean, choice items are amazing. And the whole point of them is that they're such good items, but they have to limit you to one move, because otherwise they'd be broken. Dynamax throws all that shit out the window. Now, you do not get the choice boost when you Dynamax, which is cool and everything, but why are you able to switch moves in your Dynamaxed form, and then once you're done, you can use your choice item again? The biggest thing I thought about this with was Diggersby. So, this is the OG Dracovish team before the rain came. But my boy Anti gave me this team, and this Diggersby was going ham. Like, it was putting in so much work, because I was able to Earthquake, Facade, U-Turn, Wild Charge, all this shit. Look, it's just like standard moves on Scarf, right? But then I could Dynamax, and I could use any of these moves. I wasn't locked in. So even though I didn't get the Scarf boost, I was still Dynamax, and I had Max Quake and all that shit, like Max Strike, Max Lightning, all that. And then once it was done, I was still able to just have my Scarf come back to me. So this brings a lot of mind games which just aren't fair, for example. Like my boy ABR was telling me, I think he wrote it in his post, but say you have Diggersby versus Toxapex and your Scarf Diggersby. Say you go for Earthquake as they go for Baneful Bunker with Toxapex. Now they could be like, oh shit, he's Scarf. And say I've already revealed my Scarf, but they have to keep in mind, oh no, what if he Dynamaxes and now just kills me? On my switch. Like, say he has Toxapex and Corviknight and I go for Earthquake, and now he's thinking, oh, even though I know it's Scarf, what if he fucking Dynamaxes and Max Lightnings me on the switch? And then that brings his own mind game. Oh, but what if I Dynamax my Toxapex, live the hit, and Max Geyser him? You know what I mean? So I feel like that layer of like, will he Dynamax or will he not Dynamax, or should I Dynamax, is just a layer that isn't as competitive as it really could be. Like, that type of mind game is unnecessary to me. It doesn't seem that healthy. I feel like people use that with Z-Move as well. They're like, oh, well, who knows when they're going to use their Z-Move. But yeah, Z-Move was different. Z-Move also took up an item. Z-Move was also just one turn. And there were very few Z-Moves that would just defeat your opponent on the spot. Like, the only Z-Move I would consider from last generation that was like so good was Komodo's, because it was a 185 base power and it gave +1 to every other stat. Other Z-Moves were just like, whatever. They were just high base power. Like Magearna, for example, Z-Flare Cannon. Yeah, that shit was really broken too. I mean, it was really powerful, but that's the thing. It's just one attack, one time. This the fact that every Pokemon can do it, it can go offensively, it can go defensively, I feel like there's just too much variations. And even though we only have half the Pokemon this time, I don't know, it's just not really making sense to me. And the fact that Choice Lock is just broken by Dynamax is the worst. That's easily the worst thing for me, because choice items, they are supposed to limit Pokemon. That's how it's been for the last few generations, right? When was Choice introduced? Choice Band was introduced Gen 3, and then Scarf and Specs were introduced in Gen 4. The fact that you can Dynamax and just bypass that for a few turns is really nonsense, because you're not able to pivot around Choice Mons anymore. I think that is like the #1 main broken thing to me. Like, I really don't understand that. And just overall, I think that in the average match, like, the few turns that Dynamax is present, it brings down the competitiveness of the game completely. Because think about it. Say you're playing a game, right? You're on turn 20, turn 30, you're putting in work, blah, 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 blah. You're setting up the stage. Dynamax can completely invalidate, like, all the long-term planning and progress that you had originally. That's what I believe, truly. I think that it can completely just change the game in like 3 turns. And I'm sure a lot of people agree with me. You can set the stage no matter what you want, but then some Dynamax Pokemon can come out and beat you. Think about a Pokemon like Darmanitan, for example. The new Darmanitan, the Ice type, the Galar one, what's it called? Almost every single game it's Bandit or Scarf, right? But it can always Dynamax and just switch up its moves. And what are you supposed to do in that situation? And I feel like that's happened to me so many times. I run into a Scarf Darmanitan and I'm like, okay, well, it's locked into this move. Maybe I can do this. But then it's like, oh, wait, he can just Dynamax and kill me with whichever one of his moves, because the coverage is really good. Ice, Fire, Ground, Bug. And it's like, ah, shit. Even though he was Scarf, he was able to Dynamax and then get double HP, switch his move, go for this high-powered move, set up the Sun, set up the Hail, whatever the case is. And it's just like, dude, like, how is that fair? But yeah, as I keep playing Sword and Shield, I feel like it's a lot more unhealthy and uncompetitive, and I think it should just be gone in its entirety. And I know I'm gonna piss people off with that, but dude, Dynamax goes way, way, way beyond just these offensive mons like, oh shit, like Gyarados and Hawlucha and Ditto, they're all gonna sweep me, Excadrill's gonna sweep me. Like, the choice thing is the biggest one for me. The fact that you can break out of your move, activate your Dynamax, there's just no, like, my boy ABR was telling me, there's no consistency with this. Like, it all goes out the window when the mon, like, let me quote him. He says, any concept of consistency or stability goes out the window when the mon on the losing side of the 1v1 can flip that around with Dynamax. For example, you can have a scenario of Diggersby versus Toxapex. The Diggersby user normally can threaten the Oko with Earthquake. The question then arises, will the Diggersby Dynamax? Will the Toxapex? These types of questions can arise in abundance of scenarios and devolve into an unreliable game hyper-focused on the short term. I agree with that completely. How can so many turns of progress and sharp planning be invalidated by 3 turns of Dynamax? That's not fair to me. And people will be like, oh, you guys can't deal with it, blah, 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 switch stall, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. I feel like there's always going to be small brain responses like that. I do agree that Dynamax lessens competitive strategy and rewards short-term bursts of predictions. That's what my boy ABR said. And I was like, dude, that's definitely true. It makes you have to think a lot less because you're able to just Dynamax and get to work. And I think it definitely brings down the competitiveness of a metagame. Point blank, that's how I feel. It definitely brings down the competitiveness. I don't think anybody can really argue that either. It definitely does. I mean, you're just clicking like these high base powered moves. You're getting all these boosts and stuff. How can it take skill? Dynamax, the only skillful part of Dynamax is knowing when to use your Dynamax. But the thing is, it's hard to even quantify that as skill, because a lot of the time it's like, oh shit, I'm playing this super Dynamax Pokemon. Let me just set up my Dynamax so I don't lose. Oh, my rain went down. Let me just Dynamax up and click Max Geyser so my Swift Swim team can win. There's not a lot of thought left. Z moves were different, man. If you had a Z Dragon move, you had to be smart. You can't use it on the switch to a Fairy. Likewise, your Z move could get eaten up. Look at Garchomp, for example, with Z Continental Crush. That wasn't some insanely broken threat. You can switch anything into Continental Crush for the most part and tank it. You know what I mean? Like, Z moves were not the same. This is like, there's just nothing to even think about. Click Dynamax and click your moves, because even if they switch stall, who cares? Max Airstream gave you +1 speed, Max Knuckle gave you +1 attack, and now when you're done Dynamaxing, you're strong as shit. You know what I mean? I think almost every competitive player, like high level player, will agree that this mechanic is just so broken. This is an outrageous mechanic, truly. It's so fun. I love Dynamax, first of all. I think it's so fun. But I think for the future of a competitive metagame, there is just no point. There's just no point keeping this around. And I do believe that it is probably going to get banned. I think about Gigantamax Pokemon, shit like Centiskorch, which is obviously not like a top tier threat. But I mean, if they ban it, they'll probably take all of it. I'm not even on the Smogon OU Council. I haven't been on there for 2 years now. But this is basically my piece on Dynamax. The big thing for me is obviously the choice stuff. I mean, a lot of these sweepers, Gyarados, Hawlucha, Ditto, Excadrill. I mean, who else? Corviknight, that's a defensive one that then becomes offensive thanks to Airstream, Hatterene, all that stuff, man. It's crazy, it's crazy. It's the most centralizing mechanic, and the thing that sucks, the thing that really sucks to me, is that Dynamax is the defining characteristic of Generation 8. Gen 7, Z Crystals, Gen 6, Mega Stones, and now this is Dynamax. But Dynamax is like mixing the two together. It's like Megas plus Z moves, but it's for 3 turns, bro. This is just too much. I love it, but I understand why it's just a little too powerful. And I mean, since the beginning, people are like, oh, Dynamax is so fun, but it's broken. Even I said I would hold off on banning Dynamax. But after playing with all these different Pokemon, playing different types of teams, and just being in different scenarios, because you guys know the way I play. I play a very offensive game, very prediction heavy, all that stuff. Dynamax throws it out the window, and I think a lot of players agree. So I'm not going to make this vid longer than it needs to be. That's basically all I got to say about this. I figured I got most of what I needed to say out. Yep, I think Dynamax is really broken. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'm under the impression this is definitely going to get banned. I don't know when, but it's for sure going to get banned. Like, there's no doubt in my head. At least in Gen 8 OU. I don't know how VGC is going to be. I doubt they ban it from VGC. But I know it's getting banned in Gen 8 OU. I'm almost certain, because I don't know how anyone can think this is a healthy metagame mechanic. It sucks that it's the defining characteristic, but I think it might just be a little too powerful, and it definitely brings out the competitiveness a lot of this generation. We're at a point now where anyone can win. I used to think anyone could win in Gen 7 OU, but Gen 7 OU compared to Gen 8, skill-wise, like, it definitely takes more skill. And Dynamax really throws it out the window. But let me know what you guys think. Still love the gen. Gonna be posting vids. Stream later today. Peace.